Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Barbara Jean, and you're watching The Joy Show. And Joy, of course, is an acronym that means just one you. And here on the New Thought Media Network, this show is all about celebrating our unique gifts and talents and sharing that with the world. So I would like to begin by giving you our land acknowledgement for the area which I live in. So we are honored to be meeting on this land that many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people from across Turtle Island call home. We acknowledge and thank the original caretakers and knowledge keepers of this territory, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat. We also give thanks to all other Indigenous peoples, recorded and unrecorded, who have shared responsibility for this territory. In honoring the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, which protects this territory, we accept our responsibility to peaceably share and care for the resources that surround us. We also acknowledge, as inhabitants of these lands, that inequity and discrimination continue to affect our BIPOC and 2S LGBTQ plus family. We therefore strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation. Recognizing our ultimate oneness and acknowledging our reality, past and present, we commit to moving forward in a spirit of mutual cooperation. We are one. Well, my guest today is the remarkable Reverend Sarah Phillips from Unity of the Bay. And she has got an incredible work. And she's called it The Alchemy of the Creative Process. And she talks about the ladder of consciousness. Oh my goodness. We met on Spirit Cafe show, and I had to bring her in here because we need to know more about this. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Now, we may have a very different crowd here watching this show than the other ones. So I would love for you to share the story you have about how you got this ladder of consciousness, this alchemy of the creative process, because it's exciting.
Sure. So in very late 2012, my life partner, we were not yet married, was diagnosed with an incurable and terminal leukemia. This was devastating to both of us. And I did what any good truth student would do. And I called my mentors, I called my prayer partners, I called everyone I knew who I admired, right? In the spiritual arena. And my prayer partners, they said all the right things. They had affirmations, they had denials, they had statements of truth. And when I hung up the phone, Barbara Jean, I'll be honest with you, I was like, forget this. I used a different F word, but I was like, forget this. This is not working.
Yeah.
And I had this moment of awareness where the purpose for being involved in any spiritual arena is to be able to call upon it in times of distress, in times of need, in times of sorrow, in times of fear. And I called upon it and nothing shifted for me. Nothing changed. I wasn't looking for instant miracle, but I was looking for something that could take me out of the fear and intense anxiety that I had at that time. And I remember just being completely frustrated, thinking, I've dedicated my time, energy, and effort into this spiritual movement, and it's a crock of baloney. So I was on my home office floor, and I was in front of my bookshelf, and I was doing spiritual reading, just pulling out books, opening to a page and reading whatever paragraph my eyes fell upon. And one of the things I fell upon was this book by Russell Lake, and I don't recall the book or the exact quote, but it was something about our imagination is our servant.
Mm.
And I remember knowing in that moment, not what the magic of that statement was, but knowing that there was magic in that statement, right? So I knew I was onto something, but I didn't know what. And over the course of a couple of hours sitting on my home office floor, I just got this. Some people would call it a download. Some people would say I snatched a divine idea out of the ethers. However, you want to think of that, that happened to me. And I became aware of how what I was doing was I was trying to go in consciousness from where I was, which was fear, sorrow, anxiety, challenge. I was paralyzed with fear, honestly.
Of course, yeah.
I was trying to go from there to cancer has no power over me.
It's a big leap.
It was so big of a leap
Yeah, we can't get there.
that I could not get there. And this image came to me of a ladder of consciousness, and that there were so many rungs on the ladder between where I was and where I was trying to go, that there's no way to do that. You can't even let go and jump, because that's not how ladders work.
Yeah.
So then I was left with, okay, what do I do with this information, right? And the next thing that came to me as, snatching divine ideas out of the ethers was what I've come to call Tweba. And
Hmm.
this is what I call the alchemy of the creative process. And Tweba is TWEBA, and it stands for thoughts, words, emotions, beliefs, actions. So
Okay.
when those five, we'll call them ingredients, when those
Mhm.
five ingredients are all in alignment, we have more influence on the world, right? And we have great influence on our inner life experience. So what was happening with the cancer, with the leukemia, was I became aware of what my thoughts were, what I thought about it, when I talked about it, the words that I used, my emotions, which were all over the place, as you might
Yeah.
imagine,
Yeah.
and my beliefs, and my actions. And like I said, I was paralyzed with fear. I didn't know what to do. I could barely get my spouse to his doctor appointments.
Yeah.
And I decided I was that there, well, I didn't really decide. There was just this tangible thing that that I knew there was something to this Tweba. I knew there was something to, and this ladder of consciousness.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to go not to here on the ladder, but I was going to go just to the next rung,
Beautiful.
just just to the next rung. And I just asked that still small voice within how to go about that.
Hmm.
And I got this image of, on my left side, to really lay out everything of Tweba, where I was in this moment.
Hmm.
And then on the right side, and I did this first in my mind, and then it got a little, cumbersome, and I did it on paper.
Yeah.
And on the right side, I tried to get a consistent message that I could actually believe I could achieve.
That's the key, eh?
So, for example, my beliefs were doctors know what they're doing, they know better than me. And if they say it's terminal and incurable, it's terminal and it's incurable. I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe in the power of cancer. Now, I'm an ordained minister, and people gasp when they hear me say that I
Hmm.
believe in the power of cancer. And the reason I believe in it is I know people who have had it. I know people
Yeah.
who have it now. I know people who have died from it. And
Yeah.
that's powerful.
Yes,
There's
it
power
is.
in that, right?
Yeah.
But I also had a belief in that the fact that the body has an amazing ability to heal.
Hmm.
I believed that. That was a belief that I simultaneously held, even though I also, even though I also believed in the power of cancer.
Yeah.
So I did this for all the ingredients: thoughts, words, emotion, beliefs, actions. And on the right hand side of my paper, I got everything into alignment. So what I was doing was I was sending one consistent message to the universe, because I truly believe the universe supports us in everything we do. There is a conspiracy going on, and it is a conspiracy of the oneness that is everything, is
Yeah.
working together and following my direction.
Yes.
So I wanted to send one consistent message. And I say this somewhat in jest, but somewhat not. My partner at the time, he was so far gone with the cancer that he just bought everything I said hook, line, and sinker.
Beautiful.
He just he just followed everything I suggested and everything I said.
Wow.
So I told him, in I did all the work of the TWEBA and the worksheet and everything. And then
Yeah.
I went to him with what I came up with on that right side. And I said, here's where we're at. Here's what we're going to think. Here's how we're going to talk about it. Here's what we feel about it.
Yeah.
And then, um, and then, here's what we believe, right? So, um, we, I focused in that first rung was the as far as I could take it, and that was, we get hooked up with the best medical professionals in the area. We have the best medical professionals for this. The acronym is TWEBA, TWEBA.
Yeah.
So we get an appointment with an oncologist, and something happens. We don't know what. It's the universe conspiring in our favor. Something happens, and we get a different appointment with a different oncologist. So we go there, and we find out, in fact, it is what we all thought it was, and it is this incurable terminal leukemia.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Hmm.
this oncologist happened to be golfing buddies with a doctor who works at NIH, the National Institute of Health, and they
Right.
were doing a clinical trial on this specific rare leukemia.
Nice.
So then we shifted our TWEBA into, we're going to get into the trial, we're going to get into the trial, we're going to get into the trial. We get into the trial. Then we shift our TWEBA into, we're going to get into the best leg of the trial, that that it has the best effect on his body. And this trial wasn't like you get medicine or you don't get medicine. Everybody got medicine, but it was administered in different ways.
Hmm.
And so we already knew the medicine kind of worked, but it didn't cure you, and it prolonged your life, but it didn't take the terminal. title from away.
Mhm.
So can't worry about that because we're just worried about whatever that next rung is, right?
Yeah.
So we did this throughout the whole process, just working on getting to that next place leading to where we wanted to be. What we wanted was perfect health and wholeness. But that was such a leap in consciousness, no matter what affirmation we used, no matter what meditation we used, no matter what we did, it wasn't shifting anything. There was no power in it.
Yeah.
So once we got our Tweba in alignment and we started working up that ladder, um, and we got through it, and we went through the whole process. It took a long time. I'm happy to report that there has been no sign of this leukemia now for several years. Um, the medical community does not use the word cure because they have actual medical criteria for that. That's the word we use because um, um, this type of leukemia doesn't 100% go away. It lives in your bone marrow, and he has none in his bone marrow. So it's 100% gone away. So
Yeah.
that's the word we use is he is cured of this incurable cancer. And so we got married for nothing during the process. We got married. We got married because we thought it would be easier for me after he passed away. Um, so we joked that we got married for nothing. But the exciting thing about this is because we were on the ladder to perfect health and wholeness, he has continued on that ladder. He's pushing his mid 60s now, and he just picked up his plaque from his latest Spartan race that he did, which is like you run these obstacle courses and lift
Yeah.
weights, do all this stuff.
Mm.
Um, he's in better health now than he ever was in our 20 plus year relationship.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really a powerful tool to use whenever we want to shift where we are, whenever we want to create something, whenever we want to um, um, have influence
Yeah.
on either our inner life experience or our outer life experience.
That's what I love about this. And one of the things I've noticed, because I'm with both CSL and with Unity, I'm ordained in both. Um, what I found, especially more tied into CSL, but I've noticed that the healing component of our teaching, which was quite foundational in the beginning in both organizations, it was pivotal, has drifted off to the sidelines. Like we believe in cancer and we believe in doctors that they know it all. And we do believe all those things. And so we tend to go down that route before we even consider
Mm.
doing this inner work of healing the disbelief or the belief, whatever is running the show. And what's fascinating to me about that is the power to heal the body hasn't gone away. It's just we're looking in a different direction.
Yeah. And I
Wow.
and I really think there's power in the both and, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So if I have an infection, for sure I'm going to be taking some antibiotics, right?
Of course.
Um, and also I'm going to be really looking at where my Tweba is, right?
Yeah.
So
Descend.
um, for example, I have a friend who loves hiking. That's why we're friends because I love hiking too. And he slid down a hill, got a scrape, it got infected. It just kept getting worse and worse. And he's like, he doesn't like going to the doctor. He doesn't like taking medication. He doesn't even take like aspirin or Tylenol or anything.
Yeah.
And he calls me up and he says, Sarah, I think I need to go to the doctor. Can I send you a picture? And I'm like, I mean, okay. I said, yes, yes, you do need to go to the doctor, and you should have gone to the doctor a while ago,
Long time ago.
long time ago. And we had a wonderful conversation about how when we rely on doctors 100%,
Mhm.
we are missing an entire aspect of our healing abilities.
Yes.
When we rely on our inner healing abilities 100%, we are missing out on an entire aspect of healing. So to
That's
me,
true.
it's the both and it's the spectrum, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Because it's
and
all God.
right, right,
There's only one thing. So whether it's the medicine, the doctor, there's only one thing. I love that.
right,
Love that.
right. And what I've learned, not just from this cancer experience,
Yeah.
but my whole life, what I've learned is when we are of mixed ideas,
Yes.
mixed emotions, mixed words, mixed actions, mixed
Yeah,
beliefs, that's when we get unsatisfactory results in
absolutely.
whatever it is we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And over the years, we've gotten really close to understanding this concept. So I know in unity, affirmations are where it's at. It's such
Yeah.
a big deal, but we've forgotten the other four ingredients, right?
Yeah.
And we have the idea of vision boards, right?
Mhm.
So that's a whole nother example of trying to get clear on what we want.
Mhm.
But again, we're missing a bunch of ingredients. And when I work the TWEBA process
Mhm.
and I get all five of those ingredients in alignment where they are saying the same message, my results are almost instant.
Yes. Yeah,
Almost
it's
instant.
exactly what happens. I think that's what happened for Charles Fillmore when he had watched Myrtle heal, and all of a sudden he's going, "What did you do? Let me try that," because I believe one of his legs was even shorter than the other,
Yep.
and, that was healed as well. I think there's, what I love about this teaching is that we do believe in the power of all of it, which is so important, like you say. And it really is about the confusion that we have. I think if we prayed more for clarity, we'd probably get better answers than praying for health because
Yeah. Yeah.
the health already resides within us. It's just something's masking that. And it's usually my confused mind that is playing tricks on me or whatever. So I love this ladder of consciousness. I've heard so many different things over the years when it comes to the models of healing. And as I've progressed, because I've been almost 30 years, well, just over 30 years in the teaching, but 25 years of it as a minister. And in that time, I've watched things get, feels a little bit like watered down in some
Mm.
cases, where we're not believing in the power of prayer as much as we did in the 1800s, for example, when there weren't as many options. But I do agree that it's both, right? It's everything is contributing. And what I love about your process is you're dealing with all of the aspects of consciousness that are required in order to move us forward, which are the thoughts, the words, the emotions, the beliefs, and then, of course, taking action. In CSL, we call it treat and move your feet.
Yes.
And, I think I've heard in Unity as well, pray and take action. And I think that's the big thing is, what am I believing? What am I focusing on? And what is it that I really want? And even with a number of people that I pray with, when I ask, what do you want? They don't know.
Yes.
And so I love that you have that. Let's take that first step. What's the first step? Where am I right now?
Yep.
And that is so powerful. You're a genius, girl. And when is your book going to be finished?
I am hoping by this time next year we'll be going to publishing.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it
I
will
love
be not only a book on the process, but it'll be like a workbook.
good.
So, because this is really a, I call it a life tool. So there
Yeah.
are tools that we can use um, for different things, but the ones that help us live our lives the way we want to live them, I call life tools, right? So I,
Yeah.
I would consider prayer a life tool.
Yes.
Um, I have been working this practice long enough now that I can do it in the moment.
Yeah.
And the workbook is set up in a way that first you practice it on paper, and then you practice it just in your mind, and then eventually you get to the point where you're in the middle of a situation and you say, gosh, I don't like how this conversation is going. What's my tweba? And I literally just in my mind go
Yes.
down, what am I thinking about this? What words am I using in this conversation?
Yeah.
What are my emotions? How am I feeling about this? What beliefs am I bringing about the other person, or whatever the topic is we're talking about?
Yeah.
And how am I showing up in action? And in that moment, I can see where I am out of alignment for whatever my goal is. My goal is a harmonious working relationship, or maybe my goal is to be understood by my life partner, or maybe my goal is to, get someone to understand where my boundary is. Whatever my goal is, if I can become aware of how I am out of alignment in
Mhm.
achieving my own goal, then I can put things myself into alignment. And I swear it is so magical. In the moment, just internally, I don't say it out loud. Internally, I do my Tweba work, and then I shift whatever needs to be shifted. And all of a sudden, the other person shifts, the conversation shifts, and we have some kind of resolution that
Yeah.
is, closer to what I've been trying to accomplish.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break here and then we're going to be right back. So, everybody, don't go away. You're watching The Joy Show here on the New Thought Media Network. And my guest is the Reverend Sarah Phillips. And we're talking about how to create magic in the world. And she's doing it. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Change, change. You can do it. Change, change. It's a sure thing. Change, change. Expect a miracle change. Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do do do.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
And welcome back to the Joy Show. And as we're talking about this whole concept of healing and of getting our thoughts and our words and our emotions and everything in perspective, I'm thinking about our world today and the things going on in the Middle East, what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, and what's happening right here in North America with racial inequality and injustice and the what's happening with the LGBTQ plus community. There's just a lot of disconnect and separation. How might a person use your approach instead of for our physical healing of our bodies? How we might use that in transforming our world?
Great question. So again, I would look at where do I want to be? Okay. So first, what kind of life experience do I want? Let's just use LGBTQAI plus as our topic.
Mhm.
And so what I want is I want a place where queer kids can go to school and not be harassed and bullied. I want a world where it's not considered weird to show up in clothes, a certain clothes. You know, it's not weird for half of the population to wear a skirt, right? So that's what I'm going for. I'm going for a world where it's safe, okay,
Safe. I love that. Yeah.
for people to show up.
Yeah.
I have a transgender son, so this is a topic that is dear to my heart.
I have a transgender grandchild.
Yeah. So it's the same process, right? Where is my consciousness right now? And we work, imagine a piece of paper, and down the paper you have thoughts, words, emotions, beliefs, actions, and you write down, what are all my thoughts about this topic? How do I talk about it? You know, go through the whole thing, thoughts, words, emotions, beliefs, actions. And then, and this is such an important part of this process, is we have to be honest with ourselves. So for example, if you have the tiniest little thought that I don't know, pick a letter in that acronym. If you have the tiniest bit of thought that someone who is asexual is that way only because of trauma, not because of that's how they really are. If
Right.
you have the tiniest bit of thought about that, you have to put it on your paper,
Right.
right? If you have you know, a little bit of a thought that people in same-sex relationships are more likely to commit certain crimes, put that on your paper. We have to be honest for this process to work effectively.
And being honest with ourselves, of course, is the very first step. And I think sometimes that's the hardest to go, do I really, really think this way? And of course, there's tests we can take online which will help us to see what our biases are,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
interesting as well.
I
Okay.
often work this process with individuals, and they want to rush through this first step so they can get to the part that makes change, right? But it is this first step that is the one that I think you should spend the most time on,
I
right?
think it's most important. And I just put in the chat that on November 21st, just at the end of National Trans Week, we will be doing a special feature here on myself and a minister here in Toronto who is transgender. We're going to host a show called Transgender Awareness and just talking about what it's like as a Canadian, because we've got ideas of, oh, look what the Americans are doing. Well, let's look at what the Canadians are doing because
Nice.
we're not doing it a whole lot better. I can tell you, we just pretend we are. So it's gonna be a really great show where I'm interviewing a couple of people who are trans, and also just talking about some of the things that are going on in our world that make it challenging, but then also the stuff that's very life affirming. And so it's a 90-minute special here on the New Thought Media Network. So
I love that you're doing that. I love that
yeah.
you're doing that. So when we
Maybe you
work
can come
this,
on the show as a mom.
I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah.
My experience with that, so my son came out when he was 11 or 12. He's in his late 20s now. So it was quite a while ago. There weren't Facebook groups for parents. There weren't books
Mhm.
out there to read. His school did not have a transgender students' rights policy. Um, his teachers bullied him. So not just the kids in school. He had teachers that bullied him. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
Now this all happened before my husband's experience with leukemia, so I
Yeah.
did not have the TWEBA process
Right.
developed at that time. But I think it was coming,
Yeah.
um, um, I was focusing on what I wanted my son to experience in life, and mostly it was focused on safety, right? I
Okay,
just
very
wanted him to
good.
be able to go to school and not worry if I'd have to bring him to the hospital, or
Yeah.
that anything would be broken on his body, or his little tender heart would get crushed.
Yeah.
So anyway, um, there were early steps of the TWEBA process, even back then.
Yeah.
Um, so when we're looking for world change, right, everything starts in mind.
It does.
Okay, so let's acknowledge that and just move forward with that understanding that everything starts in mind.
Yeah.
So we work the TWEBA process and we find out how we are contributing thoughts, words, emotions, beliefs, actions, how we are contributing to the very thing we say we don't like, we don't approve of, we don't
Yeah.
want in the world. And there's always something.
Yes, there is.
There's always something. And when we are able to, on that left side of the paper, write down all of the thoughts that we have, all of the words we say,
Mhm.
all of the emotions we have. When my son first came out, I was just hoping and praying that he would just be a masculine lesbian. That's what I wanted. Like,
Yeah.
dude, you're really just gay and you don't want to wear dresses and that's okay.
Yeah.
Please let that be it.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I didn't want him to be trans was I knew how difficult his life would be.
Exactly.
And there was
Exactly.
actually a part of me, even though I'm his mother, there was actually a part of me that just wanted him to find satisfaction in just being butch
Because it would be easier.
because it would be easier.
And as parents, we just want our children to have an easy go of it. And frankly, it's not our lane, it's not our job. It's our job is the container that allows them to be who they are. And
Yeah,
that's so hard as a mom. I have 4 kids. I
yeah.
just it's really difficult. It's interesting, as I've been working on this special and doing all kinds of research and whatnot, and I have a bunch of friends and associates who are trans, but I wanted to do more work, but I rewatched The Danish Girl.
Mm.
And have you seen that movie?
I have not, but I've heard a lot about it.
It's brilliant, because it's the very first trans woman and the surgery and watching, because this is in the 1930s, right? It's it's beautifully done. It is so well performed, and the story of Lily is so rich. It really is one of the yeah, it's beautiful. It's well worth watching. Well worth watching. And I was glad I watched it again because I watched it before I had a planning strategy meeting with Reverend June because I too wanted to have a little different. I mean, I have an understanding, but it's different to watch somebody go through the process of discovering who they really are and then going through the physical change and what that meant, especially in the 30s when the surgery was just starting. And so it's what is that, um, how does that work and what is the surgery that needs to be done and how traumatic that is, especially way back then. I'm sure it's a bit easier today, but still it's huge.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Hmm.
And so as far as like creating what we want in the world, when we really can identify our own where we are, then we can work on getting ourselves into alignment. So for example, I wanted my son to be safe, and my desire for my son to be safe was bigger. It outweighed my desire for him to be true to himself.
Whew.
And that was a hard thing to
Ooh,
admit.
that's a big pill to swallow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Once I was able to come to terms with that, I decided that's not right. That's how I felt as the mother,
Mhm.
but how I felt as a human being, as a being, a sacred being looking at another sacred being. I wanted this being to shine as brightly as he possibly could as his true, authentic self,
Yeah.
even if it meant I lost him.
Yes, yes.
So once I could come to terms with that,
Mhm.
again, I didn't have the whole TWEBA process, but looking back, that's what I was
Kind
doing.
of what you were doing, yeah.
I was
Yeah.
working the TWEBA process without knowing that it was a thing yet. And once I made the shift of my role here, although it includes keeping him safe, my role here primarily, and it weighs more heavily than keep him safe, my role here is to help him navigate the world so he can be true to himself.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
once I made that shift,
Yeah.
then things started happening.
Hmm.
And all of this kind of came together at the same time, me making that shift. And he came home from school. I think he was in 10th or 11th grade. And he came in and he slammed his backpack down and he said, "That's it, Mom. I'm taking off your chains. I want you to go mama bear on my school." And I thought, what could possibly have happened to him that this is now different,
Yeah.
right? Because he had been beaten up, he had been bullied by adults in cruel ways. And so I thought, how bad could it have been? And you know what it was? An
Mm.
incoming freshman who was trans had the same teachers he had when he was a freshman. And he watched this young boy get bullied and pushed around. And he said, "I can't watch this happen to anyone else."
Wow.
So we joined forces. We went to his school. We did all the things. We did
Good.
all the action, right? And so he was a junior in high school. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure he was a junior at that time. And it was the year after he graduated that the county enacted a transgender students' rights policy.
Wow.
Much to the work of our family. And that's how we see change in the world, right? We
Yeah.
get clear on one, how we contribute to the very thing we say we don't want,
Yeah.
whether it's bigotry, racism, misogyny, war, violence, hatred, whatever. When we can truly identify within ourselves how we are contributing to that, and then we say, okay, we don't want to contribute that to that, even if it costs me something. And
Hmm.
that's where most people drop the ball. That's where
Yeah.
most people stop. um
Yeah.
I had to get to the point with my son that supporting him and living the life he wanted to live was more important and held higher, more weight in my life than my desire to have him in my life and keep him safe,
Keep him
right?
safe. Yeah.
Right? Because putting himself out there and and challenging the world's view on who he should be put him in physical danger.
Hmm.
And I had to get to the point where I was okay with that. And not only was I okay with that, I would support him in living that life.
And that's a beautiful thing because I think it's a, as children of whatever age, parents kind of are God, right? Because when we're little, they see all, know all, and they're everywhere present. It doesn't seem to change much until they get into teenage years and they can kind of move away from us a little bit. But I think there's a, because at the core of their being, we really do hold that place of being God. When we give the impression that we disapprove of who they are, which is not the case. It's just us trying to keep them safe. But really, that sort of triggers something when there's that sense of, my family isn't supporting me for who I am. how do I, one of the things Reverend June said to me was all I wanted to do was be myself.
Yep.
And that should be allowed.
Yep.
Wow.
People just want to live their lives.
Yep.
They just want to be true to themselves, live their lives. And I think that that is the goal of, so the Tweba process,
Yep.
that is the goal of of that process, is to be able to live the life you want to live, live intentionally, live on purpose, and
Yeah.
live with a positive influence on the world around you, right?
I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. That's sort of the foundation of where this show came from. Just one you, like
Yeah.
trying to get that message out that who you are is fine. And there's only one of you. And you bring something to the planet at this time that nobody else can bring, which I think we forget. We tend to go, oh, I should be more like this person, or I should dress like that person, or I wish I was as tall or as thin, or as we've got all these ways that we're comparing. And I heard something today, I can't remember where, but compare equals despair. And I
Mm,
thought, holy moly, that's kind of right. Anytime I've been comparing myself to someone else, especially as a teenager, it's one of the things that happens. And doing that, how horrible that always made me feel, like I'm not good enough. And I know there's a lot of people in our world today who are kind of living in that type of awareness. Like, how could I just be more like that?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And that comes from, we make these agreements as a society about what's okay and what's not okay, and we have these artificial systems of value, right? So if you
Yeah.
make more money, you have more value, or if you're more aesthetically beautiful, you have more value, or if you're within a
Education.
certain age bracket,
Yeah.
education, all of those artificial um, measures of value.
Yeah.
And I wish as a young person, I could have known that those were artificial measures.
Yes.
But it took living life, and it took having a lot of life experience for me to realize that those are artificial measures.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just part of the normal human life, like in one single life evolution, but most young people don't have a full sense of that. And I don't know why that is, but it seems to be the case.
Yeah, I think the whole system kind of has been set up to diminish. It seems to be like even the school system and everything is kind of set up to diminish the individual. And I think even when we look at the school system and the hours that teenagers are expected to be there, that to me is just shockingly weird. Like they should start school at noon and finish at 6 or something, right? Like that would just
Every
make sense.
every study that's ever been done on teenagers says they need more sleep.
Yeah.
And when we're working out bus schedules and school schedules, we always start the high school students earlier, right?
Yeah, it's for me, I look at some of these things and I go, we're setting up systems that tend to support the upper controllers, whoever's running, whether it's the executives of a board or whatever. And even within our organization, I'm not sure about Unities, but with its CSLs, we have our, global centers, right, all around the world, but everybody has to meet on our timetable. So when we have these these diversity, equity, inclusion type meetings. Well, the person from Africa needs to do it in the middle of the night because we're going to do it on our time frame. And I thought, isn't it fascinating how we're working toward inclusion, and at the same time we're actually actively working against it.
I love that you bring this up. I like to talk about the difference between um, tolerance, acceptance, and inclusivity,
Hmm.
right? Tolerance is okay, you can be in the room. I'll tolerate you being here.
How horrible, eh?
I know, right?
Oh, I hate that.
Acceptance is, yeah, I will tolerate you being in the room. I accept you being in the room, and if you want, you can sit at the table, but
Shh, be quiet.
and inclusivity is not only letting someone in the room and letting them sit at the table and letting them have a voice
Yeah.
at the table, but it's also looking at the table. What is at my table? What is a hindrance for you to show up and participate? And
Yes.
that's what you're talking about
Yeah.
with the time, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, um, um, like I always say, yeah, if you're in a wheelchair, you can come to my church. We're going to put a bunch of obstacles in your way, but you're
Yeah.
welcome.
You're going to have trouble getting in the door, and you're going to have trouble getting to the coffee, and you're going to have trouble. The bathrooms don't quite work, but you could go next door. Yeah, we come up with all kinds of things,
Yeah,
don't we?
right, right, right.
Well, we're
So
down
I
to
set
our last 2 minutes, if you can believe it. What final thing would you like to leave for people today? Man, I could talk to you for 3 more hours.
I I would just like to say that when we can get serious about living our life with purpose and with intentionality,
Mhm.
that's what brings joy, right?
Yeah.
Because we are doing life on purpose and not
Yes.
living it by accident and just at the
Mm.
whim of whatever happens around us,
I
right?
love that. I love that. Thank you. Well, I'm so glad you were here. I had a great awareness last week, and that was I work all the time and I wasn't taking time for pleasure. So
Mm.
this week I started taking piano lessons.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that for you.
I'm
I love that for
66
you.
years old, and I'm going to learn how to play the piano now. Why not? If
I
not
love
now,
that for you.
when? Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will send you some details about the trans awareness, the flyer and stuff. You can market it to your people, and I'm really excited about this particular project because it just feels like we need to understand. Because understanding helps. It's almost like that first rung. If I understood a little bit about this other human being, maybe I could be more accepting, loving, inclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You are awesome. Thanks, everybody, for watching the New Thought Media Network, The Joy Show. I'm Barbara Jean. This is my lovely guest, Reverend Sarah, and you can find out more information about her at unitybythebay.org. And be sure to come back again next week when we're going to do this all over again and have a whole lot more fun. Have a great week, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Bye for now.